Good morning. I'm a little bit early today. I'm gonna go see if I can get the road opened up for my neighbor. Anyway, today we look at Mark 7, verses 14 to 37. And this starts with Jesus talking to the crowd after he's been chastised by the Pharisees and religious leaders again. He says, "Listen to me and understand. There is nothing outside of a person that by going in can defile that person. But the things that come out of the person are what defile the person." And then he talked with his disciples, some of his disciples a little bit more intimately than that. It says when he left the crowd and entered the house, his disciples asked him about that. And then, he talked about it again. He said, it's not what you eat, it's not what you take in, but it's what comes out of your heart. He says, since it enters not the heart, but the stomach, it goes into the sewer. So when you eat something, you eat or you drink something, whether, it's, swine, which would have been unclean for them, or, he says that can't defile you. And Mark's got written in a parenthesis, thus he declared all foods clean, and so then that, kind of helps lead into where Peter sees the cloth, the tablecloth of this, come down with all of the foods in the book of Acts. But, Jesus said it's what is within you. It's what's in your heart and in your mind. It's your thoughts. And then he goes on and he talks about, he says it's from the heart that evil intentions come. And he lists fornication, theft, murder, adultery, avarice, wickedness, deceit, licentiousness, envy, slander, pride, folly. He says all of these evil things come from within, and they are what defile a person. And if you read in, maybe it's Galatians 5 or Galatians 6, the fruits of the flesh and the fruits of the Spirit. And again, as Paul is writing that letter, it's very clear that there are things that are a definite difference in who we are and how we I was going to just see if I could find that text in Galatians here quickly. Galatians 6 talks about the armor of God, so it's evidently Galatians 5 that have the fruit of the spirits, or whichever. But anyway, I'm not going to bother looking for that right now. But Jesus is talking about our personality, our character, and character. That's so important to be known as trustworthy. To be known as honest and upright. A person's character and how others perceive that person is of utmost importance, and I remember, someone saying something about a person, and not a negative comment, but I said about that person that he is a person of utmost integrity, and you can trust him. If he says something, you can trust that it's true. But if you get a person that, with all, even some of these, intentions, these things that defile according to Jesus, there's a lot of difference that we can see in that. And when you find that fruits of the flesh and fruits of the Spirit, fruits of the Spirit are patience, peace, understanding, loving kindness, and, the good things, the good aspects of who a person is. So Jesus has made all things clean and eligible to eat that way, and talked about character. And when he's done explaining that to his disciples, the next day probably they set out and they go to this region of Tyre. It's quite a ways north. This is Jesus' longest journey, furthest journey from his home of Nazareth or his new home at Capernaum. And when he gets there, it says he went into a house and didn't want people to know he was there. He was looking for a quiet retreat. But a woman hears of him. A woman who knows of him hears that he's there. and comes with and talks to him about his daughter. And this is this Gentile woman that, the disciples are, not, I guess it's not in Mark so much, but, Jesus says to her, I came for the children of Israel and let them be fed first. Shouldn't take the food and throw it to the dogs. And, his character reference of this woman. I mean, he just got done talking about things that defile a person, and here he calls this Syrophoenician Gentile woman a dog, basically. And she says, but even the dogs eat the table scraps of the master. And so she says, even though I may not seem worthy, all I need is a scrap. All I need is a little bit. I don't need all of you. I just need a little bit. And Jesus says to her, for saying this, the demon has left your daughter. Her faith was there. And she knew that, just a little bit of Jesus. And she knew that she trusted in Jesus, even though she was this Gentile who had no business coming. And as we could read that in other Gospels, the disciples would be upset with her and tell Jesus, well, tell her to go away. She's bothering us, But it's a lesson for us that we can bother Jesus. We can bother God with some of these little things sometimes. Verse 31, he returned from the region of Tyre through Sidon. And so the only thing that we find out of this trip up there to Tyre is that he had this encounter with this woman. And then he returns back to the Sea of Galilee, to the region of the Decapolis, the 10 cities, and a deaf man with a speech impediment comes. And I think about that. A person that can't hear is most likely not going to be able to speak clearly. If they can, how do they learn the correct sound for a word? If they can't hear it, how do they know how to say tree or love or anything? And so for a deaf person to be able to speak at all would be quite something, I think. But, anyway, Jesus takes this person away from the crowd, just by himself. And it says he put his fingers in his ears, he spit, touched his tongue. That sounds, spit and touched his tongue. But saliva is a cleansing and healing. You think about an animal. When they get a wound, what do? They lick it. Their saliva cleans and somewhat disinfects it, gets the dirt and stuff out of there. But so the saliva was a type of healing. And this man was able to hear and able to speak plainly. And Jesus tells him, go tell no one. But, that didn't work, because he went and he told more and more and more. And this is another one of those instances where when people hear, they say, he has done everything well. And I think about God's words, this is my son in whom I am well pleased. Jesus has done well.